Good afternoon, 5th grade.
Good afternoon, Mrs. B.
Well, you know why I'm here this afternoon. I'm here to talk to you about the Iowa Children's Choice Award. And just a little background about the award. It was started way back in 1980 by the Iowa Association for School Librarians. And what they wanted to do is just get kids like you excited about reading. Now, you guys as 5th graders know a little bit about this award already. All of these books, and there are 20 this year, have been nominated by kids just like you across the state of Iowa. So as you're reading books this year, if you come across a book and think, I think other kids in Iowa would like to read this too, take the name and the title and the author and give it to Mr. Dyer or Mrs. Butler, and we'll nominate a book. It has to be written within the last 5 years, and it has to have been written by an American author. A couple years ago, we did have a book that Sageville nominated, made it onto the list, so it does happen. Okay? All of these books, like I said, were nominated by kids in grades 3 through 6. Iowa Children's Choice Awards are for kids of those ages. Okay? Show me with your fingers, how many books do you need to read before, so that you can vote at the end of March? Show me with your fingers. That's right, you need to read at least 2. Could you read more? Yeah. You betcha you can read more. Okay, so at the end of March we will be voting again. It's only kids in grades 3 through 6 who can vote for the winner. I don't have time to interact and answer questions with you, so we're going to do some hand signals, and some of you know these hand signals already. So if you agree with me, or the answer is yes, you're going to give me a fist nod. If your answer is no, a fist shake. If you're thinking me too, or yeah, that's me, it's finger, baby finger and thumb, me too. And then if you have a connection with the book, you guys know the connection sign, right? All right. So as I'm talking, instead of, stopping, you guys can just give me those hand signals, okay? Is that a good idea? Is that a good idea? All righty. So I have been doing this now for 13 years. The last 13 summers I've spent reading kids' books, and I've loved it. It seems like every year, though, there's a theme that goes through all of these books. One year, there were a lot of books about animals. One year, there was a lot of books about bullies. This year, for whatever reason, there are a lot of books where one or both of the parents aren't in the home. Out of the 20 books, 14 of the books have parents out of the home for whatever reason. Guys, that's 70%. So it's kind of interesting that's why that happened, right? Okay, well, you know how it works. I'm going to talk to you about the 20 different books. You have the list in front of you on a bookmark. As I'm talking, if you hear a book and you think, I think I'd like to read that book, I want you to draw a circle around it. If you hear about a book and you're thinking, I just can't wait to read this book, I want you to give it a star. Right now, I want you to turn your bookmark over, write your name and 5M on the back. I'm giving these bookmarks to all the kids in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades here at Sageville. When you go to the library now, you can take your bookmark along and say, oh yeah, this is a book that I wanted to read. And Mrs. Butler, has these books on a twirly cart for you. They're very handy, okay? All right. So, here we go. We're going to get started. I'm going to go right down the list, and remember the different hand signals I showed you, okay? All right. My first book is called Gaby Lost and Found, and one of the main themes of this book is something that's been in the news a lot lately, and that's the theme or the topic of illegal immigration. That means that people aren't here legally in the United States. Now, you guys, we live in a wonderful wonderful country, don't we? And a lot of people want to come here to live, people who live in other countries. But to do so, you have to go through special steps, and it takes a long time for that to happen. Some people don't want to take the time to do so, and so they sneak in, and then they hide kind of in plain sight, hoping they won't be found. Well, this is what's happened to Gaby's mom. She and several other women are working in a factory, and the authorities come in and round up all these illegal aliens and ship them back to Honduras. Now, because Gaby was born here in the United States, she is considered a U.S. citizen, and she doesn't have to go. But she misses her mom terribly. She has to live now with her dad. She hardly knows him at all, and he doesn't understand her at all. But the one thing that makes her feel good is she does volunteer work at the animal shelter, and there she finds an adorable cat by the name of Feather. And right now Feather's face is covered up here by the barcode, but Feather is so cute and so sweet, and Gaby would really like to take Feather home and give her a forever home, but Gaby doesn't feel like she has a home of her own. And how could she make a good home for a pet? Gaby feels right now more lost than found. I love the title of this next book, What We Found in the Sofa and How It Saved the World. Now, I'm not sure if I should tell you what's in the sofa, but I will tell you this. I'll bet that you have something similar right now in your desk. Here's the story. River, Freak, and Fiona, 3 friends, come up to their bus stop, and there's a sofa, a couch, sitting at the bus stop, and they're thinking, comfy place to wait for the bus. Well, Fiona gets this great idea. Let's look in the cushions and see if anybody left any money in the cushions. Great idea, right? Okay. Well, should I tell you what they found?
Yeah.
Okay, just because it's you guys, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. One thing they found was a old sock. They also found a domino with double 6s on it. They found a fish hook that River got stuck in his finger. And they found a zucchini-colored crayon. Everybody, what color would zucchini color be? Everybody. Green, yep. And all of a sudden, the 3 kids are in the middle of a plot to take over the world. The only way that they can save the world is to try to catch the evil mastermind billionaire when he comes to try to steal the rare zucchini-colored crayon. And oh, the adventures that these kids have. They meet their neighbor across the street. His name is Alf. He's got the coolest high-tech gadgets that you can imagine. And then they try to rescue somebody using a hot air balloon that's shaped like a toilet. And then they have to deal with a cat by the name of Mucus. So if you like adventure story with some wackiness thrown in for the fun of it, this would be the book for you. Now, I need to make a connection here. And this is going to be text-to-text connection. When I was teaching 5th grade at Audubon, every year I would read the book A Wrinkle in Time to my 5th graders. It is probably one of my favorite stories to share with kids. This author loves Wrinkle in Time also, and he has several references to Wrinkle in Time in this book. Now I've got another connection to share with you. I just found out, this is going to be text to world connection. I just found out that Disney is making a movie about the Wrinkle in Time, from the Wrinkle in Time, and the main character is going to be Oprah Winfrey. And it's going to be out about 2018. And guess who's going to be one of the first people in line to watch that movie? I cannot wait. Okay, my next book is called Absolutely Almost. And you're going to meet Albie. He's an almost. He's almost good at tetherball, but not quite. He can almost do his homework himself, but not quite. He can almost make his folks proud of him, but not quite. You see, Albie has a learning problem, and it's gotten so bad that his fancy schmancy private school says he can't come back in the fall. So he has to go to a new school, and at the new school there are bullies there who pick on him a lot. And then there's the problem, the issue with his best friend, Erlan. The boys have lived across the hall from each other their whole lives in an apartment building. They're the best of friends. And now they're going to have to, Erlan is going to have to move because his family has 2 sets of triplets. And the TV people think that they would make a great reality show. They have to go to move to a bigger place so there's more room for the TV scenes. The only highlight of Albie's life is his new nanny, Callista. She is the best thing, and they go and have adventures around New York City together. She's an artist, and she's teaching him how to draw. And they're using both of their pictures to help him with the struggles that he's having in his life. And then Callista does something very inappropriate in his parents' eyes, and they fire her. Oh, he was so close. He was absolutely almost there, but not quite. And what's going to happen to Albie now? My next book, True Sort Of, is written by an Iowa author. Her name is Catherine Hannigan. She lives about an hour and a half north of us in Fayette, Iowa. A friend of mine sent me this information, this newspaper clipping from the Fayette paper about Catherine. Here's her picture. And the part that I highlighted there is about the new book that she wrote, True Sort Of, that's on the list this year. So we, published authors live right here in Iowa. You're going to meet Deli. And for most of Deli's life, she's been in trouble. I mean, she starts out with something good, something fun, and it ends up with, Deli, you are in so much trouble. And as she's getting older, it's getting worse, and she's fighting with people. She really doesn't have any friends, because who wants to be friends with a troublemaker? And then Ferris Boyd moves to town. Ferris is very special. Ferris doesn't talk. She doesn't want to be touched, but she can communicate with animals and birds. Well, the girls get to be friends. It should just be this friendship that can help Deli control her behavior, and so that she is a good friend from Ferris. One fun thing that Deli does is she makes up words. And in the back of the book, you'll find a Deli-ictionary of words that she made up. And maybe this would be situations where you would find it fun to use these words too. Well, then Deli finds out a secret about Ferris Boyd. And it's a heartbreaking secret. And she knows she must do something to save her friend, to help her friend. But what can she do that would be true, sort of? The Year of Billy Miller is a story about a boy who's a worrier. And the thing that Billy's worrying about right now is the new school year. You see, over the summer there was an accident, and Billy fell and bonked his head. He's got a great big knot on the side of his head. And he's afraid this knot is going to keep him from learning anything new and make him forget everything he's learned before. The book is divided into 4 sections, and each section concentrates on a person in Billy's life. His mom, his dad, his sister, and his teacher. And as he learns stuff about each of these special people, he also learns things about himself. And he finds out that this really might be the year of Billy Miller. Something weird is going on at Ellie's house. Her grandpa has moved in with Ellie and her mom, but that's not the weird part. Grandpa and Mom don't get along. They're bickering all the time, but that's not the weird part. Grandpa treats Mom like she's still a child, and he criticizes how she dresses, what she does for a living. She's a teacher, the drama coach at the high school, but that's not the weird part. The weird part, Grandpa is a 13-year-old kid. What? Yeah, Grandpa's a brilliant scientist. And he's been doing experiments with jellyfish. And he develops a serum that has the fountain of youth in it. He injects himself with this serum, and all of a sudden, instead of being an old man, he's a 13-year-old kid. The mom says, if you're a kid, you got to go to school. So Ellie and Grandpa are both at middle school together. Weird, right? Okay, well, even though he's still got the brilliant mind of a scientist, he's acting like a 13-year-old. He's complaining about homework. He doesn't want to do his book report, and he leaves his smelly socks on the floor. Well, Ellie, this is pretty weird. But along the way, Grandpa teaches Ellie about life and also about some famous scientists. And Ellie has made a scrapbook about these scientists. She shares this scrapbook in the back of the book about these famous scientists. And also you're going to find Grandpa, he finally did get his book report done, and with the comment the teacher made. And, this is so weird. And you wonder, how long is this condition going to last? You're going to have to ask the 14th goldfish. My next one is called Fish in a Tree, and this is a story about Allie. Allie has a secret. She's in 6th grade, and she can't read or write. And she's going to do everything she can to keep this secret. Now, part of the problem is that her family is in the military, and they move around a lot. And like I said, she does everything she can to keep the secret. And one of the things she does is she misbehaves, so she gets sent to the principal's office, and she doesn't have to perform in class. It's just really kind of a bad situation. Well, where she is now, the school that she's at now, the teacher has a baby, and she goes on maternity leave. And they get a substitute teacher in by the name of Mr. Daniels. And Mr. Daniels is pretty smart. He figures out there's a problem here, and he has several ways that ideas of how he thinks he can help Allie with this problem. Allie also makes some new friends. There's Keisha. Keisha's also new, but Keisha is not afraid to stand up for what she believes in, and she's not afraid to stand up to mean girls. You guys know about mean girls, right? Yep, I thought so. And then there's Albert. Albert is so smart. He is just very, very smart. But he lets bullies pick on him to the point where he has bruises that the bullies have given him. Well, with the help of these 3 special people, Allie starts feeling better about herself, and she doesn't feel so weird like she's a fish in a tree. My next book is called Dash, and it's written by Kirby Larson. Kirby Larson wrote Dubuque, that won here at Sageville last year, and also for the whole state of Iowa for the Iowa Children's Choice Award. Both books are based on something true. Both books are set during World War II in the 1940s. Now I need to give you a little bit of background before I start telling you about Mitzi and her family. December 7th, 1941. This was the day that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and the United States entered into World War II. There were people living here in the United States, we call them of Japanese descent. That means that maybe their parents or grandparents were born in Japan and then moved here. So even though they were U.S. citizens, their ancestors lived in Japan. Now, because we were at war, people got very suspicious and very fearful of people of Japanese descent. And so President Franklin Roosevelt made and set up what they called war relocation camps. And everybody who was of Japanese descent had to go to these camps so that they were worried that they would give secrets and information about the United States. And this is what happened to a family who lived on the West Coast, and that's what this book is based on. When they were sent to the camps, they were given a suitcase, what they could carry in one suitcase, and they had to leave their pets behind. Now, luckily for Mitzi, she found a neighbor who would take care of her beloved Dash, but she's just devastated that she can't have Dash with her. These camps, you guys, were awful. They were more like prison camps. Very bare necessities, outdoor toilets. I mean, it was an awful place to be. And Mitzi sees her family falling apart. Now, her family consisted of Mom, Dad, her brother, and Grandma. And when they were home, they always had supper together, always had talked about their day. Well, now at the cafeteria, it's rare that they can find 5 places together so that they can eat together. They find out that Ted, the brother, he's hanging around with these other teenage boys that are really bad news. Mom and Dad are always busy at political meetings, and Grandma, she's off with the other little old ladies knitting or playing cards. Mitzi sees her family falling apart, and she's wondering how they can survive, and especially how can she survive without her beloved Dash. In A Snicker of Magic, you're going to meet Felicity Juniper Pickle. She sees words floating around people's heads, and so she collects them. She writes them down in a special notebook, and she's a word collector. Mom, Felicity, and her little sister are wanderers. They move from place to place. They never stay in any town too long, and Felicity's getting tired of it. She wants to stay and put down roots, make some friends that she's going to keep for a while. The night that they pull into Midnight Gulch, Felicity has a feeling that this might be a different place because this is Mom's hometown. And there's an ice cream factory there that has, count 'em, 45 different magical and marvelous flavors of ice cream. Like I said, this is Mom's hometown, and she thinks this might just be the place. Well, Felicity meets a rather strange character known as the Beetle, who goes around and does good things for people anonymously. Nobody knows who's doing all these good deeds. And there's also a rumor that there used to be magic in this town, but a curse drove it away. And Felicity thinks maybe she's the one that's going to be able to bring the magic back to the town, because you know what? There's always a snicker of magic. Do I have any football fans in here? All right, then this is the book for you. Charlie Gaines loves football. Loves to watch it, loves to study it. He just wishes he was better at playing it. Now, Charlie notices things that other people do not notice. And as a result, he can put together some really good fantasy football teams. He's so good they call him the Brain. Charlie and his best friend Anna live in Los Angeles, and you won't believe this. Anna's grandpa, Warren, owns a professional football team, the Bulldogs. And he's decided that they should bring professional football back to LA, and so the fans are ecstatic. LA's got a football team again. Yes! Until the season starts and they find out the Bulldogs are not that good. Well, like I said, Charlie notices things that other people don't, and he starts sharing his observations with Grandpa Warren. Grandpa listens, he makes some changes, the Bulldogs start winning, and the fans go wild. And then the media finds out about Charlie, and they start saying, hey, there's a kid that's running this football team. Well, that makes Anna's Uncle Matt feel just awful, because he's the general manager, and he's the one that should be running the team. And Charlie finds out it's a lot different when you're dealing with real people's lives than when you're dealing with a fantasy league. I want you to look at your bookmark, and I want you to read the next title with me. Rain, rain. Okay, these 2 words are what we call homophones. You've heard of that word before, I know. And Rose, our main character, loves homophones. She is thrilled that her name is a homophone. Rose like the flower, and rose like the sunrose. She loves homophones so much that she collects them, and she writes them down in her notebook. And sprinkled throughout the book, you'll find Rose's collection of homophones. She loves homophones so much, she's named her dog after a homophone, and her dog's name is Rain. Well, Rose has what we call autism. And simply put, when you have autism, things in your brain just don't quite match up like they should. Rose has made a bunch of rules and routines for herself, and if anyone breaks the rules or it's out of her routine, she gets very upset, very frustrated. She can't handle it. One night, Dad accidentally leaves the gate unlocked, and Rain escapes. And of course, wouldn't you know it, there's a bad storm coming, a hurricane. And Rose has to break out of her comfort zone, break the rules and the routines, and go looking for her dog. Will she be able to find Rain in time? Read the book to find out.
I'm sad.
Would anybody like a magic pencil? Would anybody like a magic pencil that talks to you? Would anybody like a magic pencil that gives you the answers on tests?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Well, this is what Ava finds that she has in all the answers. One day, Ava is what we call a worrier, just like Billy was. She plays a stupid game with herself called What If? What if I can't get into the jazz band? What if I do get into the jazz band and now the big kids laugh at me? What if customers quit coming to my dad's general store? What if? What if? One day she needs a new pencil and she grabs an old blue one out of the junk drawer in their kitchen, heads off to school, and when she gets there, it's time for her math test. And she starts playing this, what if I can't remember all the answers? Well, she works herself in such a tizzy that she can't remember all the answers. And so she starts writing down the first problem, and all of a sudden, the answer, it's like a voice in her head. The correct answer. She looks around. Did anybody else hear this answer? Doesn't look like it. She writes down the next problem. Again, the answer comes to her head. Well, she listens to the pencil. She writes all the answers down. She gets a star on the test. Woohoo! Well, she tells her best friend about it, and her friend wants to do goofy things like, oh, let's find out what boys like me. But Ava thinks she's going to do something good with the pencil, like for people at the nursing home where her grandpa lives. She's going to find out what are some things that these people would like. Well, Ava finds out something from the pencil about her family that she really doesn't want to know. And again, it makes her worry even more than she was before. And she wonders, is it really such a good idea to have a pencil with all the answers? My next book is also written by an Iowa author. Sarah Prenius lives in Iowa City. That's where the Hawkeyes play. And the setting at the beginning of the book could be in Iowa, because Sarah describes farms, barns, rolling fields, long gravel driveways. The main character's name is Jennifer, but she goes by the name of Fur, and she lives with her Grand Jane, she calls her Grandma, on a farm, and because her mom and dad are dead. And one day, it's late winter, just getting ready for spring. She's out walking in the woods, and she comes to the farm pond, and she just touches the surface, and up out of the water, 4 creatures. Looks like 3 wolves chasing a scraggly looking dog. Well, Fur chases off the wolves. She goes over to the dog, and it turns out it's not a dog at all. It's a boy. Well, she takes the boy back to Grandma's house, and so they can tend his wounds. And Grandma takes a look at the boy and says, your kind is not welcome here, Puck. What? That doesn't sound like Grandma at all. And what's a Puck? Well, it turns out the Puck's name is Rook. And Rook is from another world. And he senses right away there's something special about Fur. And he tries to convince her to come back with him to his world. Now, Fur thinks, I think if I go, I'll find out what happened to my mom and dad. And so she goes with Rook to this other world. And when she gets there, it's cold. It's like the middle of winter. It's so cold there. She finds out the land is being ruled by an evil huntress by the name of the Moor. And the creatures that are there, they look like people, but they have animal characteristics. And she just feels things are not right. she figures out that she's the one that's going to be able to fix things. And she's going to have to dig down deep inside of her, find her inner warrior to fix things in this land, or both worlds will be plunged into everlasting winter. Not a good situation. My next book, Sugar, is again a historical fiction book, and we find that the setting, again, is very important. This book takes place on a sugarcane plantation in Louisiana. A plantation is like a big farm, and the year is 1870. The Civil War has been over for 5 years. I need to give you some background information so that you can understand a little bit more about this book. Now, in the South, they grow crops like sugarcane and cotton, and it takes a lot of work. Now, back in those days, they did not have John Deere equipment like they have today to take care of this stuff. So they used slave labor. You guys have heard about slavery, right? And you know how the slavery was happening down there. After the Civil War, slavery was ended, but the farmers still needed workers for these crops. So they asked the former slaves, please, would you consider staying here, working for us? We'll pay you this time. Well, some of the former slaves says, okay, we'll stay. This is our home. This is what we know. Others moved north. Now, the farmers still needed people to work the land. So they went over to China and asked people in China to come here to work in the sugar canes and the cotton plantations. You guys, I've been studying history a long time, and I've never heard of this before. This is a new fact. This is what I learned from reading this book. So this is where our story is going to pick up now. On the sugar plantation, there is a young girl by the name of Sugar. Her mom and dad are dead, and she lives in the cabin by herself. She's very headstrong, and she does pretty much what she likes, including being friends with Billy, who's the owner's son. And the other adults in Sugar's life thinks this is just awful. A black girl and a white boy being friends, well, I'm sorry, it just is not done. But Sugar and Billy think, times are changing. It's okay for us to be friends, and they have the best adventures together. Well, when the Chinese workers come, the black workers are they don't trust them. These Chinese, they're different. The way they look, the way they act, what they eat, different. We don't trust them. But Sugar is fascinated by them. And she wants to be friends with them and learn a little bit more about them and their culture. She soon realizes that she's going to be the one to bring these workers together so that it can be sweet on the plantation again, especially if your name is Sugar. My next book is about a little boy named Adam, who also has autism. Adam is 4.5, and he doesn't speak. He gets very frustrated, and when he gets frustrated, he screams and throws a tantrum. One thing that will calm him down are dolphins. He has a dolphin book. He has a stuffed dolphin he plays with. The dolphin DVD, and you know what? He's watched it so much, he can make the sounds like the dolphins. His sister Lily is the one that is asked to help take care of him. The mom is dead. And Lily doesn't really have any time for friends because she's always dealing with Adam. And she goes to the park one day, and she does meet a friend. Her name is Zoe, and Zoe's blind. And when she brings Zoe to their house to meet Adam, Zoe and Adam immediately have a connection. Well, because they live in Florida, long story short, Adam is invited to swim with Nori. Nori is in a dolphin enclosure recovering from a medical condition. And Adam loves swimming with Nori. Again, there's an instant connection, and after being with Nori, he's calmer, he's happier, everything is great. Except Lily and Zoe notice that the conditions at this dolphin enclosure are not very good. And Nori's a wild animal. Shouldn't she be out with her family in the ocean? But if they let her go, what's going to happen to Adam's dolphin therapy? What to do? If only someone knew how to speak dolphin. My next book is about twins, Jake and Lily. And one cool thing about this is that every other chapter is told from the different twins' point of view. So first the chapter will be about Lily, then it'll be about Jake, and it goes back and forth that way, talking about the different points of view of these twins. These guys have been so close their whole lives, they can tell what the other one's thinking. And they're 11 years old now, and Mom says, it's time for you guys to have your separate rooms. Well, Jake, he's ready. He's ready to go off, be friends with the guys, and it's wonderful. But Lily's thinking, I'm losing my best friend. I'm losing my twin brother. And I will tell you that she does make some friends, and she comes up with a really cool project with these friends. And you're going to enjoy reading about this project. But then there's Jake. You know how in stories there's the main character who gets picked on by the bullies? Well, in this story, Jake's the bully. And he has to decide what kind of kid he really wants to be. And will he and Lily ever be safe again, or close again? My next book is part of the survival series. I don't know, have you guys read of it, any of the other ones? Yeah, they're good, aren't they? And this one is about something that really happened in Chicago in 1871. There was a big fire in Chicago. A little bit of background. It burned 4 square miles of the city. 300 people lost their lives. Over 100,000 people lost their homes. So it was pretty nasty and a major event. Our main character of our story is named Oscar. He didn't want to move to Chicago in the first place. But his mom remarried and they moved to Chicago to Mr. Morrow's house. And when they arrive in Chicago at the bus or the train station, Oscar's job is to watch the luggage while the adults go off to check on something. Well, he's distracted by a gang of kids who are thieves. And when he gets back to his luggage, of course, it's stolen. And then he sees one of the kids that stole his luggage. And he goes running after her. And before you know it, both kids are facing a towering wall of fire. Oh, the terrifying adventures that they have as they try to survive the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Loot is another adventure book. Alfie McQuinn is a notorious thief. He and his young son March travel the world stealing jewelry and gemstones. And Archie is training March to be a thief just like him and how to stay 2 steps ahead of the police. Well, Archie, it's the end of another heist. Archie's on top of a building. March is down below ready for the getaway. And all of a sudden, March sees Archie falling off of the building and onto the pavement. He runs over to his dad, and with his dying breath, Archie gives him one more direction. But what he says doesn't make sense at all, and thus begins the adventure of a lifetime for March. And in it, he finds out he has a twin sister. Why wouldn't Dad have told him about his twin sister? They meet up with these 2 other kids in a foster care group home, and the 4 kids decide that they're going to try to retrieve 7 magical moonstones. And along the way, you'll find that they are running for their lives more than once, stealing from another master thief, and trying to stay out of the clutches of a crazy old lady. If you like adventure stories, Loot is the book for you. My little book, Honey, here has 3 stories in it. First, you're going to meet Mo. He's the bulldog that's on the front of the cover here. Now, Mo is happy enough with his master, but he keeps having these dreams about this family with a little girl in it. And he wonders, is she somehow significant in his life? Is she still out there someplace? Will they ever meet again? Then there's Bibi. Bibi has moved back to her hometown. She wants to make a go of her new business. She's opened a beauty shop called the Beehive. And to bring people in, she's developed her own brand of fingernail polish. And she's got cool names like Christmas Tinsel and Zippity-Doo-Dah. But will her friends and neighbors support her, and will she be successful? And then there's a story about Melody. Now, Melody's mom died when she was a baby, and it's just been her and her dad her whole life. And that's okay. But one day, her bratty neighbor from next door comes over and says, I heard at the beehive that Henry has been bitten by the love bug. What? Henry's her dad's name. Could it be him? And the love bug, what does that mean? And then she overhears Dad calling somebody honey, and it's not her. So it's up to Melody and her best friend Nick to put the clues together to figure out who Honey really is. Now we've got 3 stories, and how they all come together, you're really going to be amazed when you read Honey. Now my last book here is kind of unique. I told you I've been reading these books now for 13 years, and most of the books, almost all of them, have been fiction books. This one is what we call an autobiography, where the author writes the story about her whole own life. Now again, the setting is very important. The story takes place in 3 different sections of the United States during the 1960s and 1970s. One thing I like about this autobiography is at the end, Jacqueline has put in some pictures, a photo album of herself and her family, and it just makes it more realistic and easier to identify with the author. Jackie and her brothers and sisters have to decide what it means to be a young African American during this time. It was a time of unrest in our country, and people like Martin Luther King, you've heard of him, right? Okay. Martin Luther King and others are trying to bring together our country, and they have to, figure out where do I fit here? So it's kind of an eye-opening book. And another thing, excuse me, that makes this a unique book, it's written as a poem. It's called Free Verse, and so there's not a lot of words on each page. Free verse is poetry that doesn't rhyme. So even though this looks like kind of a fat book, not very many pages or words on each page. Okay, take a look at your list. How many of you found at least one book that you just can't wait to read? Okay? How many of you think that you will be able to read at least 2 of these books by the end of March and vote for us? Okay, great. All right, well, thank you for being such good listeners, and keep reading.